And people, what up? Could the Panthers have two stud edge rushers by the end of this season? What's going on? You're watching Panthers Post with Phil Perkins. Thanks for joining. Well, OTAs are done. We are now counting down to training camp in Spartanburg. Leading up to that moment, I'm going to be having a cool couple projects coming up. Firstly, I'm going to hopefully have one of the Carolina Panther beat reporters on here on Panthers Post to give me their impressions of what they saw during OTAs, who stepped up, how's Bryce Young in person, how's he getting along with the other skill position players, who could surprise us this year, who could be potentially on the bubble to get cut from the team. So I'm really excited about that. Still trying to work that on in the background. But in the meantime, I'm going to be doing a profile every single week on a player I think is going to be stepping up this year. Maybe someone who may not be a household name to all Carolina Panther fans, but hopefully sometime this year could really start contributing to this squad and be a significant part of this team and its, I think, ascendance to being an NFC contender. I was thinking of this series, there was really just one player who I really kind of got to start. He's the one that planted the seed in my brain to be like, man, I think this guy's going to be a really great contributor to this squad. Just kind of reading the tweets from players and reporters who are on the field during OTAs and before all that stuff. And that is number 97, Yetur Gross-Matos. Yes, part of that all defensive draft in 2020, that second round pick out of Penn State. I think he's going to step up this year. I think every single year he's just getting a little bit better and a little bit better. And I know, in the NFL, we talk about tight ends having a very slow progression in terms of really being a contributor at the level of the pros. Yetur Gross-Matos and edge rushers, you think, we see so many people, whether it's Myles Garrett, Jadeveon Clowney, Brian Burns, these edge rushers who are drafted so high that contribute right away. And so we just assume guys like that, or, Nick Bosa or the Bosa brothers in general, we think that they're going to contribute right away. So when Yetur Gross-Matos, was kind of an unknown guy, despite the fact he's being a second round player, I thought that maybe he could be a contributor right away to the team. But that just wasn't the case. He contributed a little bit as a rookie. Now, mind you, before we talk about his time in Carolina and any of these players' times in Carolina, you kind of have to put the Matt Rule, asterisks on everything, as we're hearing more and more about how they coached this professional football team, not very professionally. You kind of can't blame the player for a lot of the stuff that's happening on the field. Albeit, there are guys out there like the blue chip guys, like the Brian Burns, the Jeremy Chins, Derek Browns, the Christian McCaffreys, players that are going to be amazing almost, in spite of the coaching. But when you got someone like Yetur Gross-Matos who came into the league kind of like a project a little bit, he was, as a height, weight, speed guy. He hasn't filled out as he did as much right now. But you could almost credit or discredit the coaching that he got during his first couple of years as a pros, and maybe slowed down his progression as a pro. But not saying that he's had a bad pro career. I mean, there's a reason why. In the last year and a half or so, he was kind of, at least in my brain, a trade target. So he's someone that you can use as a bargaining tool to try to trade for draft picks, because I thought he was pretty good. I thought he was pretty good last year. And I thought that maybe another team could see that potential and grab him in exchange for picks for Carolina. But at the end of the day, they ended up not trading for him. They're keeping him. And I think under Giro Evero in this new 3-4 system, he could be playing a new position. I think he's going to thrive and using that athletic ability. And I really think this year it could translate. And by far, during his rookie year, he started in the last 7 games for the Carolina Panthers as the season started to get out, kind of get out of hand a little bit. He notched in 24 tackles, 2.5 sacks, 1 forced fumble. And the second year, a little bit of a sophomore slump, if you want to call it that way. That was the year that they had Hassan Reddick and Brian Burns, so he wasn't really going to get that much playing time. He played more of a situational role, but he did still notch 3.5 sacks, starting in 2 of those games, and again, 1 forced fumble. But in his third year with the Carolina Panthers, kind of bulking up a little bit, he played in 17 games, started all 17 games, and had a career best 54 tackles, 5 tackles for loss. Those are super important, just as important as sacks or fumbles or anything like that. 2.5 sacks, and led the NFL with 4 fumble recoveries. And so it really came to show a little bit his worth on the team and the potential that this guy had. And he's not a small guy, guys, 6'5", 265 pounds, really filling into that. He's definitely a height, weight, speed guy, as I mentioned. And I think he can really use that third year, that momentum that he got. I'm pretty sure he had the last tackle of the season last year against New Orleans. And I think with this new coaching staff, and then, he's getting continue the tutelage under Brian Burns. There's footage of him and Brian Burns working together when Brian Burns still kind of working kind of light right now with the recovery from the ankle injury, kind of teaching Yetur Gross-Matos, the spider ways. Yeah, I'm sure they've already been chatting behind the scenes and on the field all the time, but it was just footage of him. I think it was actually shared by Brian Burns' brother. And he was just kind of showing him the spider spin, the stiff arm, and that agility that Brian Burns just kind of naturally has. But to transfer that to Yetur Gross-Matos, who is, about the same size, if not bigger than Brian Burns at 6'5", 265, if he were to just take 2% of whatever Brian Burns is teaching him and applying that to his game now, there could be a reason why the Panthers have not picked up an edge rusher as of yet. Yannick Ngakoue has not been picked up. Leonard Floyd hasn't been picked up by the Panthers. Maybe they're seeing something that we haven't noticed, which is why we're trying to get a beat reporter on here who is on the ground, boots on the ground during OTAs. Maybe they look at each other and be like, hey, in this new Joe Evero system, we can use Yetur Gross-Matos, and he could be just as valuable instead of paying these veteran guys. We have the guy right here in our own house. And so I think with a combination of just being in his fourth year in the NFL, feeding off the momentum from last year, continued tutelage from Brian Burns, a new defensive scheme which could allow him to use his athletic ability, I think Yetur Gross-Matos can explode on the scene this year. And I think he could maybe not make a Pro Bowl, but I think he could be a regular contributor and a name that people are going to have to say every single Sunday, Saturday, Thursday, and Monday. Did you hear it here first? Probably not. Am I the only person saying this? Probably not. But hey, let me know what you think. Do you think Yetur Gross-Matos is going to have a breakout season this year, build on what he did in his third year, and really be a household name? Maybe see some 97 jerseys in the stands. I don't know. But let me know what you think. You think Yetur Gross-Matos could break out this year, or do you think that we could see a regression because of the new defensive scheme? Let me know in the comments below. But that's my first player who I think is going to come out and be a regular contributor to this team, especially with Brian Burns maybe a bit slowly getting into the season after his ankle procedure. I think Yetur Gross-Matos could make people think, hey, maybe we didn't need a veteran edge rusher after all. He could be the guy. Let me know what you think.